Another scandal in the White House, President Donald Trump admitting that he did mention former Vice President Joe Biden and his son on a call with the Ukrainian president in July. This comes after the president previously denied the allegations. Here's what he said to reporters on the South Lawn.
It was a warm, friendly conversation. There was no quid pro quo. There was nothing. It was a perfect conversation.
It was a perfect conversation, he says. We have our very own Rick Newman here to break everything down for us. Rick, so what's the deal here? What's going on?
So Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, sat on the board of directors of a Ukrainian gas company starting in 2014 all the way to this year, and he resigned that position just because it became controversial. He's not charged with any wrongdoing. There's no allegation that Hunter Biden did anything wrong, but he took that position at a time when his dad was the vice president. And Joe Biden, at some point, while his son was on the board of directors, he was sort of the point person during the Obama administration for outreach to Ukraine, and he pressed Ukraine to fire the person who was the chief prosecutor at the time. And that person was supposedly looking into this something involving this gas company. Now, again, this does not involve Hunter Biden. There were investigations into the CEO of the gas company, and Joe Biden tried to get that guy fired. So that is the apparent conflict of interest. Now, what people who've paid attention to this situation are saying is there was generally among all the G7 nations, they all wanted this guy to be fired. He was sort of not doing anything to root out corruption, which was his job. So he was sort of abetting corruption. And Biden at the time made it contingent upon U.S. aid that you got to get rid of this guy. And they did.
Mm-hmm. Now, President Trump is under pressure because of the phone calls with Ukraine's president. Can you talk to us about why this is such a serious issue and why Democrats are now calling for impeachment?
So President Trump apparently had this phone call with the new president of Ukraine when he came into office over the summer and pressed him to do something to investigate Joe Biden's role in trying to get this prosecutor fired back, a few years ago. There's no reason to think that there's anything wrong with the Bidens, that the Bidens did anything wrong. It looks a little weird that, Hunter Biden, vice president's son, had this job. I mean, it paid like $50,000 a month. That's a lot of money, more than $500,000 a year. Did he get that job just because he was the vice president's son? It's possible. Nonetheless, there's nothing wrong with that. And President Trump is now trying to generate the idea that there's some Biden himself was involved in some kind of violation or that this is scandalous. It's not scandalous what the Bidens did as far as we know. There could be more, I guess. But President Trump, by asking a foreign leader to investigate his political opponent, that is possibly illegal. And then there's the next question of, we heard President Trump say there was no quid pro quo. In other words, I did not offer to make a deal with him to get him to investigate the Bidens. But there was this delay in U.S. aid, which is appropriated by Congress. Congress said, we want the $250 million to go to Ukraine for aid. And that got held up. And then it finally did make its way to Ukraine over the summer.
What's interesting here, though, is that President Trump acknowledged, though, that he did talk about former Vice President Biden on this phone call, although, as you mentioned, the quid pro quo kind of condition, caveating that. But why is that important for, President Trump to try to make that point? What is he trying to get at by acknowledging, A, that was part of the phone call, but B, that there wasn't necessarily a deal as part of that?
Well, we have to talk about this, the whistleblower, right? So there's this, supposedly the reporting is, there's a whistleblower who filed a whistleblower complaint inside the U.S. government because he was so concerned about something President Trump said to a foreign leader. Mm-hmm. So we're connecting the dots here and sort of assuming that the foreign leader was the president of Ukraine. We don't actually know that for a fact. We don't know what is in this whistleblower complaint. And the whistleblower complaint supposedly says President Trump offered to make a deal with somebody, and the whistleblower thought this was so troubling and required urgent attention that it got into the whistleblower channel. So there's a lot more to come on this. Did President Trump really offer some kind of deal to get dirt on Joe Biden? This obviously echoes his call, in 2016 for the Russians to provide dirt on Hillary Clinton. It looks awful, but it's pretty much in line with what we've seen from President Trump.
All right, thanks, Rick.
Sorry it's so complicated.
So much.
Everything is complicated here.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.